Hey guys,
Hey, Kate. Good to see you.
good to see you.
Can you see
Okay,
her?
so
Okay.
I'm, I sort
Well,
of.
let me just say,
I just looks like a floating head. I can't see.
It does.
Oh, camouflage.
Oh,
get
yes,
it.
right.
I
There
know.
you go.
Wow,
Oh,
I tried
yeah.
really hard.
Yeah,
I just need to get a camouflage
Well,
hat.
you were pretty effective
Something.
yeah.
because I think that those artificial backgrounds you can have, Pep. I just thought,
Yes.
right. I just thought like, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's just her face and her glasses and
Right.
her hair. I can
Yeah.
see. I couldn't see anything else.
Can you
Go
hear
ahead.
that generator?
No.
Oh
No.
my gosh, thank goodness. Okay, so talk
I
about
mean, I
being
mean, I mean, even the sound is camouflaged,
Yes.
so talk about naming what's in the room. So, you guys are talking and they're doing construction outside of my building.
as they always
And
are.
as they always are, the trash
Apparently.
trucks have already come, but I'm sure another one will come. But I can hear someone trying to start a generator.
Huh.
And I can hear the person like pulling the thing, pulling the thing. I'm like, you're going to flood it, pulling the thing. I'm praying. I hope it doesn't start. They were just successful in getting it
Okay.
started.
Oh, well, I
Perfect
don't hear it.
timing.
But
Yeah.
that's fabulous.
Okay.
Whew. It's so good.
Mm.
So good. Okay. So a couple of things that stood out to me were okay, and we talked about this last week, or the part one.
Yeah.
That we come into the phases.
Yeah.
And I think you said as much. Like we can go even if we're in phase 3, we can go back to phase 1
Very
in like
with
2 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. But the idea that we come into the room thinking that there are problems to be solved. And then we get to the point where we are loving the work and
Mhm.
can't imagine like not doing the work. Like there's not
Right.
an end to this.
Right.
This is life.
Right.
And then the fact that we are all works of art.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're doing in these rooms, and not even in these rooms, because we're doing it in relationship with there are official confessional communities, but then even with our friends, it's a confessional community.
Yeah. Well, we
And
have
so
one right here. We have one.
right. Yeah.
In this, the
Yeah.
three of us,
Yeah.
we do. There is a way to do this. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're chipping away and finding the art that
Yeah.
is there.
Yeah.
I was struck by a couple of things that you said or talked
Mhm.
about in the first episode for part
Uh-huh.
one,
Yeah.
where one thing where you're talking about the person that comes in and is automatically thinking, how am I going to get out? Kind of like
When's this end? How long do I have to do
I remember
this?
when we were at a church out in California and they started a new community groups, right? They started new community groups and they were calling them life groups. And I didn't want to join because I'm like, I am not signing up for life. I mean, it's just not. And that's where my head was. But yeah. Can we name them something else?
Funny. Like we can call them month groups.
Yeah, right. But the other thing that you talked about just a little bit was this idea of presence when people don't realize their presence. I used to have I will say, because I'm the youngest in my family, and we were pretty fortunate. Been pretty fortunate, and there weren't. I didn't go to a lot of funerals in my life because but now I'm spending more time in funerals. The last few years, a lot of people have passed. People that are close people, and I used to have the occasion when I did have funerals when I was younger, I had a lot of anxiety about because, the way that that receiving line. And I'd get in that line and I think, what am I going to say? And the first, like I know these people on this end of the line. I don't even know some of the people in the front of the line in the family, and I would get anxious and be like, why would I? Like, what can I even say that will be any comfort or anything that's not been said 600 times before I get up there?
Yep.
But I do realize now that just being present, just being present is part of the healing process. It's part of the process. And
well, and we might say It isn't just part of the process. It is the fundamental.
Yeah.
It is the fundamental element that
Mhm.
courses throughout the entire process. It's
Right.
the hard
Mhm.
deck on which
Yep.
everything else for healing in life is built.
And knowing that now has made that like um that experience, even for me as the person that's offering it, has made it, I don't have any anxiety coming in anymore. I'm just like, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you're present. So you're
and I'm present.
doing, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's really beautiful, Pep, is that when you come into that space and you are uh, present and you are like aware that you are present and that that's mostly what
Mhm.
you're there to be,
Yep.
Mhm.
the one who receives your presence, they know it, they sense
Mhm.
it,
In
they
their core. Mhm.
right, they say, like, because when somebody else comes and they're anxious because they're trying to find something to say or to do or to whatever, like they also know that they're like, look, I
Yep.
don't need to.
Yep.
Yep. And so it's such a beautiful thing because and like what you're doing, like you are being the second sentence of the Bible,
Mhm.
hovering,
Mhm.
attuned, completely at ease within yourself, present
Mm.
with the chaos, and simply at the ready to speak in order to bring order and purpose.
Mm. Mhm.
But it all begins with your hovering, attuned, attentive presence.
Yeah.
Okay. I have two other things. Um, One, okay, the idea that when that we can start where we are, like if we're afraid, and then if we say, well, I'm afraid people are going to be mad at me, and then it's like, well, okay, who in this room? And so being in a confessional community, if that comes up, sometimes we'll say, well, like everybody, I'm afraid everyone's going to be annoyed. And then the facilitator will say, everyone equally, because it's very rare that it's everyone equally. And it's on the, not only on the fear side, like if you say I'm feeling very supported and I feel the care, and it's like,
Right.
who? And there's
Yeah.
so much power and vulnerability in saying
Right. Right.
the person.
Right. Right. Well, this gets like we gets the other side of so you're pointing out something else too. One of the other questions that we will frequently ask is, um, from whom do you want something right now?
Oh, mm,
From whom do you want something? And the amount of courage that it takes for someone to say, "Oh, I just witnessed this past week too." There was the particular person who turned to, I've mentioned her, Courtney, turned to
uh-huh.
her in particular
PN.
and said,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's right, PN, I'd love to hear from you because when
It's
you talk,
crazy how vulnerable
when
that is. Like how
right, you
hard
could
that
to
is
ask
to
for this
say.
or but
Yes.
let alone, and it's even one thing to ask something from Courtney or from me, who are kind of like the
Yeah.
parents in the room.
Yeah.
It takes even more to look across the room, and especially if it's a dude, if it's a guy who's asking for something from a woman,
Uh-huh.
that's when it's like all the having to do with all the things that we don't like.
All
Is
the
this
things.
is this okay? Because of we've talked about this, that sex is in the room, like it's in the room, like the whole
Yeah.
notion, like when men and women are in the room, this sense of attraction and longing and connection and so forth that we are still waiting to have happen from the first from our first parents, Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Like to say, yes, I would love, because when she speaks, when he speaks to me, I really feel protected, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
John, when you talk to me, I
Mm.
feel like I hear something I wanted to hear from my dad that I never heard.
So
And of course, at first glance, John might feel like, oh my gosh, now I got to deliver. I got to like, no, dude, no, no, no.
good.
Like
Yeah.
you've already been doing it.
Right. That's why
Sarah,
she's feeling it.
right? And Sarah's just now making it explicit, and so like,
Yeah.
so John's like, oh my gosh, like
That's so cool.
I'm actually doing something for someone by being or whatever. Like, and these
Right.
are like that's something that like we don't experience in individual therapy, because like I never hear that I'm like doing something for my therapist.
Yeah.
But part of my healing depends upon my being aware that I'm actually a conduit of healing, which is part
Yeah.
of this is what the body of Jesus is doing. It's not just that we can bring healing to others, but that when I am vulnerable, that I become a conduit of healing, in and of itself becomes healing for me. Spirit of God, man.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to tell one story. I know
Yeah,
we
yeah, 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 yeah,
I'm
yeah.
mindful
No,
of your
that's
time,
good.
Pat. Okay, so this is like in the moment. So the three of us, we do this work together. We are a mini confessional community. So before when I interrupted you guys, I
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
interrupted the recording.
yeah.
So before I got there, I had to think, okay, at what point do I interrupt? I want to interrupt at a time where we can split. I have to think through the schedule, the podcast schedule. And then I have to think, is this just the stupidest idea ever?
I mean,
So
interrupting.
I'm,
The notion of
yeah,
interrupting. Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, right.
Yeah,
Or the idea of
Pepper and I
splitting
were
it.
talking about that later. Later, we
Yes,
were offline
about what a lame idea this was.
about it. No, no, whether or not it was the stupidest idea ever. And
Ever,
we
ever.
decided, no, it wasn't. It might be close,
Well,
but it wasn't the stupidest.
but the beautiful thing is that I thought, okay, even if I were to interrupt you guys and it be like, no, we're just gonna keep racing through this and do it in one episode. It was like I thought I can tolerate whatever.
Yeah,
Like, and it's like
yeah.
then that is where when we have those experiences, then it just builds on, builds on, builds on. Am I making sense?
No,
Thank you.
totally.
And it's like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, it's in the room.
yeah,
And there would have been a time that I would have never interrupted. I would have been
yeah,
like, we'll just figure it out.
yeah.
I think you're just trying to put off doing the artistic offering.
I know I'm like, whew, that worked. I don't have to do that for another week. It's a side benefit.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm so grateful that you said that because it is an example of kind of it tells a story about our corporate relationship.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
It is a story. I mean, you're telling your experience, but it is a story that is about our community.
Yeah.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And that's just beautiful. And I would love for
Mm-hmm.
our listeners to hear this because, and this is the thing, we before we enter into these, communities, like we don't have these experiences. And so we don't have the practice. So we don't have the confidence yet to believe that what you just said can happen, can happen. We don't,
Right.
you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
to work into it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's going to feel risky. Yep, it is. Right. Because the gate is narrow. The path
Right.
is narrow. Right. It's hard. It's hard to do.
It's risky business. It is hard to
Yep.
do, but it is
Yep.
the right kind of hard. It is
Yep.
the life-giving
Yep.
hard. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
All right, folks.
Yeah. Man.
All right,
So good to be
guys.
with you guys.
Really
Yeah,
great.
for sure.
Really great.
All righty.
All right.
Until next time.
Until next time.